welcome to today's educational webcast. Today we're going to spend the next 25 minutes or so chatting about artificial intelligence, obviously a big topic, big sector, growing. So first up, of course, we have disclosures. Any of these presentations are educational only. Nothing specific is addressed in terms of investment for you and your own planning. So complete and total education only. So let's kind of look at artificial intelligence and some history. It's interesting when I started reading a little more, I realized there was a Dr. John McCarthy going back to 1956, who they claimed to be the founder. He was a big computer scientist into programming. There was a big conference at Dartmouth College back in 56. And a lot of the discussion at the conference was about this foundation. So you think about that, 56, 67 years ago, and you might say to yourself, well, how could that be? No one's really talked about it, a lot until, recent 5 years. It's been around. So certainly if you know and you have family in computer programming and in that area, you're aware of this discussion. There was a program, kind of standard programming called Lisp, and that's kind of the genesis of a lot of this AI discussion. He then went on to have a conference at Stanford in 66, and they started to evolve a little more in the discussion of, making the computer more like the human in the thought process. And that, if any of you recall, there was chess match where the computer was mapped up against a elite Russian chess player. And he was behind that, Dr. McCarthy. From all things you read, it ended up a 2-2 draw. The machine was 2 and the human chess player was 2. So that's just give you some basic background. The other gentleman, you should be aware of and you might read about with artificial intelligence, just left Google, actually. There's stories that he left Google because he disagrees with the direction of AI and where it's going. But this was a British Canadian citizen, a Dr. Geoffrey Hinton. And they claim he was, a big impetus back in 2013, the discussion of AI, and then Google hired him and so forth. So as you can imagine, like anything new, you hear Bill Gates talking a lot about this is the next Microsoft, so to speak. So at its basic, artificial intelligence is giving the computers, the robot, the device, the ability to learn and speak and respond like humans. We're not there yet. A lot of the interaction is the programming of a device. It's not a natural give and take, right? So the real ultimate, purest artificial intelligence will be when the computer sounds like, not looks like, but sounds like the human, and the conversation is like you're talking to, friends, spouse, family, what have you. A lot of uses for artificial intelligence. So let's start to dig into it. Positive effects. We'll cover the positive, call it the credit side of the balance sheet. We'll cover the negative, call it the debit side of the balance sheet. Positive effects personalized. I'll use, my example. I've used them frequently. My dad be 89 in a couple of weeks. A number of years ago, he was really losing his hearing bad. And, he wasn't getting the interaction he wanted with the 15 grandkids. So we bought him the Alexa. And we got it programmed into his own desktop where he lives at the assisted living. And he can now talk to Alexa and say, tell me what Jacqueline is, up to, and it'll log him into Facebook, and he can get up to date on Jacqueline, one of his granddaughters. Same with the rest of. My father's a big sports junkie. He doesn't always log onto the computer, so he can talk to Alexa and say, "Hey, how did my Red Sox do last night?" I heard there was a recent trade with the Celtics. That type of thing. Healthcare. Again, I'm going to use the example of myself. Went through a recent situation myself with healthcare, still going through it. And I can tell you, my engagement with my primary care, I've been with 23 years, has been very frustrating. I gave them all the symptoms I had 2-3 weeks ago. A call back came to me 9 hours later and told me to go to urgent care. If I could have had an artificial intelligence discussion telling the robot, if you will, the healthcare robot, my symptoms, what I was feeling like, how I was having all these shakes and I couldn't eat and all that. I'm believing that the artificial intelligence engagement would have said, please immediately get your blood drawn, go to urgent care. I wouldn't have waited 9 hours. Very simple example, but I think this part of artificial intelligence is going to be extremely powerful right in healthcare. We've all had these unfortunate frustrations. Communication, you call the credit card company, you got a problem with your bill. You call the insurance company, your homeowners for the house, you can't get a hold of your agent. You have a question on some document you just signed, maybe closing a piece of property. You can't get a hold of somebody or people are busy. That's at its base foundation, the valuable enterprise to artificial intelligence, efficiency, right? You can have that discussion, say, look, I just wanted to clarify, what was the closing cost that we paid? You could just see the efficiencies of how the artificial intelligence would be helpful. Personal devices, I talked a little bit about Alexa, with my father's example, but, how about getting appointments? How about reminders? It always seems to be at least 5 or 6 give and takes with my dentist office to get an appointment pinned down. It'd be nice to be able to talk to my dentist virtual assistant and say, I have available this time. Does that work for Dr. So-and-so? No. Oh, all right. How about an additional time? These times are available. Efficiencies that way, I think, are very important. Industries, the one that comes to mind a lot with me is the automobile industry. It's already embraced, certainly the robot, on the assembly line. It's embraced. I've seen it in grocery stores with the robot doing inventory and, tasks like that. So now let's look at, the other side of this. With every certainly positive, you're going to have offsets to negatives, and especially with artificial intelligence. The first one, people think, oh my goodness, I don't need to be, working anymore at a certain labor task because, the robot's going to replace me. I'm reading more about construction, embracing robots on the job sites, right? It's able to maybe get to a certain area of a job site more safely. It's able to carry maybe more load by programming. I think almost the drone situation with our military, right? The idea that you don't need as many personnel and you're not putting as many humans in harm's way. However, it displaces people, right? So that is a negative. The privacy security, we've all, I'm sure, had an example of this where you've logged on, maybe some identity issue came up, the encryption didn't work well, misunderstood something you said, and it logged on to the wrong Facebook or, a different family member, or, that can happen. So this is there's a lot to certainly learn about updating the systems, but privacy and security is a problem. What are we talking about with bias and discrimination? Well, you've certainly seen it, in the last decade, if you will, within a lot of discussion. I'm going to call it government discussion, in the middle of pandemic and maybe different needs that different groups had for that area of healthcare. You want to make sure that the artificial intelligence system is, as they say, blind admissions. You hear that term, for like colleges, universities. So AI doesn't have any built-in bias or any kind of discrimination to whom they're communicating with. Right now, there are issues certainly around the systems. Human oversight, I mentioned this at the beginning. The purest form of artificial intelligence is where you are talking to a system, the human, I'm talking to a system, and you feel like you're talking to a friend or a family or, in my world, a human advisor, and you're able to have give and take without pause. That's not there. So artificial intelligence can automate tasks like we talked about in the automobile business, maybe manufacturing, labor intensive, inventory type things in the grocery business. But in terms of critical decision making, it's not there. So let's keep digging in to the artificial intelligence and kind of the financial effects. Disclosure in my business and the financial business is, well, wait a minute, Dave, you're bringing this up. This is just going to replace all of the personnel, in the financial planning, financial advisory business. I disagree. In this form, what you have to do is embrace it as a compliment. And again, it's easy for me to use a 28-year-old daughter, 26-year-old son, who are very obviously technically savvy, just getting going in careers, need really more basic discussion, as opposed to at the other end of the spectrum, the 60-plus-year-old, where you've accumulated assets and money, and you have more questions about investment management and income planning and all that. But at the basics of artificial intelligence for the groups, my children's friends and many of you that have family, is let's get down to the basics. And budgeting tools through artificial intelligence are vast. There's one called Mint. It's very popular. Basic financial advice. I'm going to have, Anthony chat on this in a minute when we go into the kind of Chat GPT and other sources. But again, the financial advice, if you will, robot will disclose, I'm not able to understand your personal goals. I'm not thinking in your risk tolerance unless you're telling me some more data, some more background. But it's helpful, right, to get things started. Credit score, the credit agencies are probably way ahead on artificial intelligence. They've been using this forever. And customer support, you're getting more of it, right? It's coming, it's slow. Of any industry, insurance industry, probably the slowest to embrace it. And they probably should be the first, right? Rather than tell you it's going to be 28 minutes on hold. How frustrating that can be. As we kind of peel back and looking at a big function, I think, of artificial intelligence and people with financial planning and really all ages. I'm indicating, kind of my two children, but I think budgeting drives the whole financial planning discussion, right? It's a big deal. Where I see this complementing a lot, what we're doing and individually helping people with their planning, is this is a baseline discussion to have the client complete before maybe even meet. Just give them some background. Let's get into the budget discussion. Where are you at? Why was your original feedback to me that you can't seem to save, more than $500 a month, or you seem frustrated by something? This is, I think, the very basic foundation of a positive part of artificial intelligence, and it's very helpful in complementing what we do and talking with people, say, for the first time, or even having meetings with retirees, who are always saying, Anthony knows we were just on the phone with a couple in their 70s, they're all still talking about budget. They're all still talking about income. They're all still talking about they need more income, not less. So this discussion, yes, is very helpful to kind of early on in life. And the artificial intelligence, you can see all these different budgeting apps. So let's keep taking a look, deeper into the discussion. I'm going to turn it over to Anthony here for a minute. This is very much, in the financial planning, world, and, the robo-advisor you're hearing about, and how does it work? How can it help you? How does it complement what we do? So, Anthony, why don't you give the group a little feedback on kind of the basics of this and, where we think it helps and how it works?
Yeah, so I would say from these five, I would call them, I guess, major players in the robo-advising world. Basically, what they do to start off, or if you were to look to open an account, they would give you a questionnaire, maybe 5 to 10 questions based on your financial goals, where you are now, and what you're looking for in the future, and kind of the type of investor you want to be, whether that's from all the way down to conservative or all the way up to aggressive. So they'll give you that questionnaire, and they'll have predetermined portfolios based on your risk, and then you will invest in them either every month, yearly. Basically, it's up to you. I would say, though, like David's been saying throughout the presentation, there are pros to this, but there's also cons. I would like to say that some of these robo-advisors will have fees that match a personal financial advisor or even exceed them, but will not give you the personal advice or personal financial advice that a financial advisor could give you, just to show you both sides of the coin.
So very helpful, just kind of get you to appreciate this discussion is not going away. It won't be a discussion where, oh yeah, they talked about that and then it never caught on. It's going to catch on. It's going to catch on. And, maybe as you're more along the career path, obviously you've accumulated more, you appreciate getting the personal advice. Just think of the house example. You're putting some money into the house and you want to redo some bathrooms or a kitchen. You don't usually get one opinion, right? One price, one bid. You get two or three. So this gives you maybe an opportunity to kind of, just get a little different perspective. So let's move to a little more discussion on the credit score. I don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but this is a very strong industry embracing artificial intelligence, right? And it's very public now. You can have, phone apps. And, why do I talk about it, in terms of our discussion on artificial intelligence? Because it's a powerful resource for you as you're working along the financial planning, retirement planning curve. You need good credit, right? I mean, you're not going to be able to buy the primary house, the rental property, accumulate maybe some investment property. Maybe you need to have a different credit card for travel expenses. Maybe you're married. Your spouse partner needs to get a updated credit card now with, maybe a new name or et cetera. This is a very big industry, obviously, multi-billion, probably in trillions, but it is a very big industry to embrace artificial intelligence. So that's the reason bringing it up. There's some very established industries with AI. This would be one of them, a good 20, 30 years into it. So as we kind of look a little more, in terms of the customer support, I indicated, my frustration recently with healthcare and my primary care doc, who I just full disclosure would say for 23 years I've had a great relationship with. I think they're also a little handcuffed, right? All the paperwork, he's in a big practice, kind of crazy, all the administrative. Nonetheless, I think they could overcome a lot of their administrative hassles in healthcare, by having more of a virtual interface. So, you're going to see more and more. I talk to my phone, drives my wife, Laurie, crazy. I'm probably more inclined to talk to my phone. I need directions somewhere. I'm looking for a good restaurant or trying to figure out the time of an appointment I forgot, et cetera. That's all artificial intelligence, at its core. I think these functions, again, will replace probably a lot of customer support, but the idea is they get more refined, that you're able to get a lot quicker answer. I mentioned the insurance example. Someone had a little fender bender in the automobile. You're getting frustrated with the claim support. You can't get a hold of somebody. Can I just chat with somebody, the Arbella Amica Geico robot, and say, here's what happened. Here's my, policy number. How do I go about the claim? Boy, that would be much more efficient. So customer support, I think we all appreciate how the value of AI could enhance that. So as we kind of get more and more into this, let's take a look at finance. You say, yeah, data analysis, the future is here. And many of you know, I'm a big baseball nut. Any sport I'm fine with, but baseball I really always enjoy. Analytics, AI, algorithms, baseball was the first to embrace it back good 15 years ago, right? You think about all the stats in baseball, the on-base percentage, how does the hitter do versus lefty pitchers, righty pitchers? How does the hitter do against someone throwing a cutter versus a curveball or a fastball? It's crazy, right? The amount of stats, that's just dying for artificial intelligence. And it's certainly data-driven, outcomes. Robo-advising, Anthony did a nice job describing that. Security, the opposite of an encryption breakdown or maybe an identity issue is that artificial intelligence becomes more secure than you're just talking to that person on the other end of the phone trying to figure out a billing question on a credit card. You really think about it. Obviously everything's being recorded, when you're doing the transaction, but you're saying, geez, I'm talking to a person I don't know. They seem helpful. They're very professional. But if I knew there was more security to talking to an actual system, you may have a little more comfort. Automate tasks. We went into that, the budgeting aspect, the automobile industry, the manufacturing industry, warehouse, all of those areas. Chat boxes, we're going to get into in a minute. This whole chat GPT, I'll hand it over to Anthony, but that is real. Probably early stages. My memory is that group, which is artificial, I believe, group, went public, I believe, last year, and it's growing. I obviously know NVIDIA's story with the computer chip and the rocket ship, if you will, this year with an investment. And then strategies about investments, as Anthony commented, the robotic robo-advisor. I'm a moderate risk taker. I'm a moderate growth. I'm aggressive. Can't maybe give you a model, which to invest in. So let's take a look now at the economy, and maybe Anthony touch on this. I kind of hit on some of these areas, but Anthony, what you see and how AI would help these areas.
AI usually, I would say, in the healthcare organization today, I believe that they're using almost, I want to call it a machine where people would sit on, and it almost eliminates, I would say that the first medical personnel that you see, so the person who takes your name, takes your blood pressure and all of your evaluations, now you can sit on an actual machine and it can take all those preliminary situations that you have and then go into the doctor's office itself. For manufacturing, I believe Dave touched on it, I believe this would be an industry, the auto industry, where both robotics in terms of building the actual vehicle, and that can merge also into the transportation industry where you would see, the AI driving situation with Tesla and their I guess they would call it their autopilot version, or how they're able to drive the vehicle itself. Retail, it's been used, I want to say, for a long time in terms of just through the register. Anytime a purchase is made or a return is made, all these are calculated through their software that is used, and that is a type of, or I would call it a form of AI in itself.
So a good summary of complicated industries, certainly the healthcare probably being the most complicated. Personal data, people's concerns, can I have an engagement anymore? I think as Anthony put it well, it's more a lot of the preliminary. And the hope is that frees the doctors up, or the nurse practitioners or the PAs, for maybe more engagement with the patient. Right. That's the bigger picture of this. So let's, keep digging into it. And the ChatGPT, I'll turn over again to Anthony. But the underlying discussion of this is the ability, as this evolves, for the human to have the discussion with almost feeling like it's another human. The ability for that artificial intelligence to be that advanced where you can have that discussion. So Anthony, kind of, some uses you've seen with it, and where it's helpful, where it may not be as helpful. What do you think?
So I'd best describe this to maybe someone who's not familiar with it. It's almost a computer program that engages in one-on-one conversations. So it's similar to maybe a chat service you'll see on a customer service website, like Dave alluded to. If you needed to make a claim on your car insurance, you would see in the chat bot on the right side say, "How can I help you today?" That would be very similar to what ChatGPT is. What it does is it uses algorithms to understand the user, who would be you, and then it responds. Also, it can answer questions, it can provide explanations, offer suggestions on certain topics, and it can engage in various type of different conversations. I would say that it's most popular being used in creating content. So I would say bloggers, YouTubers, in that I would say even if you're a business owner and you need to create content for your personal website, it can help you with that. It also is in the programming and coding world, where programmers and coding can ask for certain situations or to identify certain numbers that they work with to improve their efficiency. It can also explain complex topics for you. And I would say it can give advice in many different life categories, or I would say basically anything it can give you advice on.
So try, from a practical point of view, Anthony, so people understand, you're logging on, or you're getting a phone app, or how are you kind of engaging with ChatGPT?
So you can do either one. You could log on to the website and you would just need to create an account, almost like everywhere else on the internet. Then you'd be able to use the free version, or you could use what they call ChatGPT Plus, which is the, I want to say $20 a month version, or $20 a month as of this recording. And also there are in the making of making an app, so you can just use it straight from your phone, but I believe they're in the preliminary, I guess you would call mechanics of that.
So very helpful. Like I always mention with these type of seminars, this topic specifically, we'll build on a lot of these specific areas. You could probably just have an educational webcast just on Chat GPT and give you some good examples. So moving on to an example here. So we can all recall, if you've been through a real estate transaction, how many moving parts there are. First off, you're saying, geez, I have 5% I can put down on my starter home, which in this area might be $500,000. Kind of crazy to think, but so I can put down 25 grand. Well, what does that mean for me? I'm talking to, call it the mortgage Chat GPT. And the mortgage Chat GPT responds, well, do you realize in putting that little down, you may have to have mortgage insurance? Oh, how does the mortgage insurance work? So now you get an engagement start. Now you're trying to understand, all right, well, maybe my wife and I can squeeze and get 10% down. Will that change? Yes, you may be able to apply for a first-time buyer program and not have mortgage insurance. And make sure you get your pre-approval. Where do you live? So, I mean, that's kind of the engagement. What are your must-haves? You just don't even know exactly kind of property, where you like to live. Do you want a duplex? Do you want a two-family? You'll live in one. You'll have a renter in the other to help you with the mortgage costs. Or do you want just your own house, a little bit of land? You have children, you have schools, you have needs for that. So you're getting the idea here. Rather than having the dialogue, with maybe the mortgage broker or the bank or the real estate agent, you're getting preliminary information done. That's the idea again, to complement the transaction. You're getting preliminary information done and you're getting knowledge from the Chat GPT. It's not replacing what's going to have to be a lot of individuals for now. The lawyer to do the closing of the house, the real estate agent to show you around, the MLS listings. You're going to have to now put a down payment, an offer on a house. Oh boy, now I need an inspection. Oh, geez, I got to deal with finance. 15-year, 20-year, 30-year, 40-year. Then you buy the house and you have move in. Is it a fix-it-upper? So you're having all these initial discussions with the Chat GPT, as Anthony mentioned. And this is, it sounds kind of almost Star Trek-like, but this is a function which I feel is very valuable, again, to do preliminary work. Right? So you're not chasing around all the different players regarding your purchasing a home or a piece of property for the first time. A quick recap, what is artificial intelligence? In its basic sense, it's the human giving programming to some form of computer, some form of machine. In its purest sense, it'll be the development of that machine, of that computer, to be more in the form of human cognitive. That's far away, but certainly that's, one of the concerns, right? And I mentioned, the company Anthropic, who's on the cutting edge of trying to develop this safety protocol for AI. That's a big subject. Pros and cons we covered. I mean, certainly the benefits to the artificial intelligence, helping with kind of routine tasks, getting involved more in the scheduling aspect, the dialogue. I said I had to have with auto insurance company. The cons are, replacing jobs in those certain areas, certain industries. Affecting the finance we covered. We look at it as a complement, not as a replacement. And I think, once you kind of digest it, even on your own, if you want to kind of start to develop some kind of financial plan, retirement plan, I would encourage you, go to that Chat GPT and get the base of that discussion, as I mentioned, the budget. Medical, manufacturing, transportation, retail. I think healthcare is just wide open for obviously being more organized, the administrative side, all of the, call it paperwork side of healthcare, we've all been through. It'd be nice to have some more organization in that area. Manufacturing, tasks, routine tasks, it's already there in the auto industry. Transportation, all the automobiles are trying to push towards self-driving, trying to push obviously towards the hybrid cars, the electric cars, have all this artificial intelligence in them. NVIDIA, by the way, I didn't mention, that's the significant chip company, right, that competes with Intel, AMD. They are, flying right now, obviously, but they are in all these different areas of automobile manufacturing, artificial intelligence chip. I think the future, although you may look at the future and say, we don't want to get too Star Trekky here, do we? But I think it's important to understand making things more efficient is the direction of artificial intelligence. But with the footnote, we do have to be obviously concerned about the safety aspects. It's all over the news. We've seen that. The future of ChatGPT. Anthony did a nice job describing that. And again, I would encourage you all to kind of sample that. So thank you very much. It's been a great audience as usual.